Hello and welcome back to the channel. In my previous video I talked to you about infantry detachment and their use. Today we are moving to the cavalry detachment and they are doubtful use in our game. Cavalry detachment are identical in every army, and what they make not so good in my opinion is their frail statistics. They have just one of tenacity, and this is where they suffer the most, because with one of tenacity you cannot withstand anything. Even if they have light cavalry, so they can go open order and halve the casualties, they are rounded down, so even with one single hit they are exhausted, they are shaken. So this is where they are prone almost fire and everything else. They cannot certainly go into melee, because with tenacity of one and just two attack they will end up in a bad position very soon. With the two single attack they cannot go in open order because they reduce it to one. For shooting they have a range of 12, so are in musket range, and even a detachment of infantry with a rate of fire of 2 can put them in danger, not to speak a complete battalion, maybe with support. The only real thing that a cavalry detachment can do quite easily is, if you have the first turn, first activation, or if you have a larger table, is to move then as fast as possible, maybe at the double, to forbid double move of the enemy. But for 15 points, that is the point cost of a cavalry detachment, that's it. And they became quite fast a fortitude test for your brigade, because even with a lack of passing a valor test, is unrealistic to suppose to pass one valor test after another. And if you put 15 points in a single detachment just to slow a little bit your enemy, in my opinion, is not the best way to employ this 15 points. Much better is to employ them in infantry detachment. For this reason, I adopted a solution. I just spoke about it in other video, but I wanted to share you again, maybe a little more in depth in this one. And this solution is to use not a cavalry detachment, but a sort of taken from other army, but still with the Valor and Fortitude rules. And this rule is mounted infantry. The rule is taken from homemade list from American Civil War and the Italian wars in the Renaissance, where they have mounted infantry in the form of dragoons, which is the role of this cavalry, at least on paper. The rule is simple. You have a detachment of cavalry with a statistic of 2 melee, 2 fire and 2 tenacity, so the same statistic of an infantry detachment. And as a part of the movement they can dismount and become in every aspect an infantry detachment. And the other rule is that while they are mounted they cannot charge into melee or shoot at all, but when they are dismounted they operate as an infantry detachment in every aspect. And historically speaking, I have no proof of large employment of light cavalry in this way, but the presence of carbine and the large employ of cavalry in this war, especially in the role of scouting ahead, is what pushed me to use this rule rather than cavalry detachment. Why? Light cavalry are essentially used to scout ahead, and with this kind of unit we can represent at least a little bit on the table, because the cavalry part of this unit is essentially the same essentially the same role as the cavalry detachment. Move forward, block the double move of the opponent, or maybe, and in this case they are far much better, reach fast an objective far away from your main line. Then at this point a single cavalry detachment can do much less than this unit, because their tenacity 1, they cannot dismount, they can shoot but are in range, and they are also in range of the counter fire from the enemy. And if you dismount at the end of your movement, you have a single infantry detachment that can go in open order and prolong their lives, occupy terrain, take an objective and hold them longer than a single cavalry detachment, be less prone to the enemy fire, and move quite easily into terrain without any loss of efficiency. So when they are dismounted, they can fire at a rate of fire of 2, still retain the tenacity of 2, and so they are far much better for the same point cost. But even if you decide to pay a little bit more, something around 20 points, in the 20 points is essentially the points of a squadron of light infantry. So 15-18 points seems quite correct for me for this unit. Taking the highest 18 points for a double use detachment, which have the mobility of cavalry, the firepower of the infantry detachment, and the versatility of a infantry detachment. In my opinion, it worth it. I tested it not how long as I want, but in the time that I use it, every time that I use it, they return the point in usefulness in the game. As I said, especially on the larger table, this detachment here, use it in combination of a light cavalry brigade, make the brigade bigger and retain the light cavalry roles, so even if deployed on the other side of the table and activated far away for the brigade commander as a +2, so is activated on a 2+, so retain its mobility. It's worth it. Maybe I wanted to reach a hill of woods, stop the double move or reach an objective early in the game, or simply threaten objective, forcing the enemy to divert some of his force, change his plan. Take the initiative is always important in the game, and retain the initiative is far much better. And this unit here, even if not in the officer rule for Napoleonic, is still a unit present in Valor and Fortitude rules, and nothing forbid to use as in Valor and Fortitude. Honestly, I see them in much more useful role on the battlefield than a simple cavalry detachment. You can also take in an infantry brigade, something similar to a mixed brigade, but in my opinion they works better with other cavalry. Keep in mind that a light cavalry brigade made 3 to 4 larger squadron. One of them, some horse artillery, is something that the opponent have to think of, and something durable on the battlefield. And if you want to use the light cavalry as a kind of small hammer against the opponent when it's coming, treating his flank, etc., you can still use this small unit here as a proper scout role that is typical for light cavalry. And even if you end in lost it, if is part of a larger brigade, probably you will end in a single fortitude test on a 2+, which is fairly possible to pass without too many problem. And this is I cope with the necessity or the will to have a cavalry detachment and take some from them. If you have better result with cavalry detachment or have found a role different from what I found for them, let me know in the comment below. At the moment, after years of play, this is the best way to employ a cavalry detachment. As I say, is a sort of, but it works far much better, probably for the same point. Let me know what do you think, and if you like the video, press the like button, and if you're not, subscribe, it will help. Thank you for watching, happy wargaming, and bye bye!